When speedrunning, some of the simplest levels can yield the most interesting innovations. While a normal player might write off a level as a cutscene or an auto-scroller, speedrunners will spend years trying to find a needle in a haystack, that one impossible strategy that saves time. For one particular Portal 2 chamber, a simple cutscene proved to give speedrunners much more than they bargained for. This level was once thought to be unskippable, but it ended up holding one of Portal 2's hardest skips. At one point, it was deemed too hard for humans, but it ended up being the key to improving the Portal 2 speedrun world record. Here's how Portal 2 speedrunners perfected the level Secret Panel. Secret Panel is the 7th chamber in Portal 2, and for all intents and purposes, this level is basically just a cutscene. It starts with the player exiting the elevator, entering the chamber, and then reuniting with Wheatley. After using a portal to travel over to Wheatley's part of the chamber, the orange portal closes behind the player, and we are forced to listen to Wheatley talk for around 40 seconds, until he eventually builds up the courage to jump off of his rail. After that, we can pick up Wheatley and plug him into the wall, where he opens up a secret panel for us, but only after we turn around.
Yeah, I can't do it if you're watching. Seriously, I'm not joking. Could you just turn around for a second? Alright, you can turn around now. Bam! Secret panel.
Behind the secret panel is a system of catwalks, and after a stroll through the aperture backrooms, the player finds themselves in an airlock-type room, where the screen fades to black and the level ends. This chamber is boring. There's not really any gameplay or puzzle solving. It's just listening to Wheatley talk for over a minute. So naturally, speedrunners immediately investigated the chamber to see if a cutscene skip was possible. It feels like our options are limited, especially because we don't have the dual portal gun yet, so we only have access to the blue portal, and the orange portal the game gives us disappears almost immediately. But that would not stop speedrunners. Pretty quickly, this portal shot was discovered, which let you shoot a portal behind the secret panel. However, the industrial door doesn't open unless you're holding Wheatley, so you couldn't outright skip most of the chamber. But you could still use this portal shot to save some time, as Portal speedrunner Demonstrate was able to find a clever skip with it. By doing a fling out of a wall portal at the start of the chamber, the player could climb some debris to get on top of the ceiling, and by carefully navigating through the destroyed roof, the player can get onto the other side of the chamber without directly using a portal. As a result, the orange portal stays open. You can then shoot a blue portal on the floor of the chamber, and after Wheatley jumps off of his railing, he'll fall into our portal. Once on the other side, we can shoot the portal behind the secret panel, grab Wheatley, and be on our way, having successfully skipped the titular feature of Secret Panel, and saving around 20 seconds. This is the Wheatley skip, and Demonstrate found this strat only 3 days after Portal 2 released. Despite not actually skipping Wheatley, it seemed like the definitive skip for the chamber. You needed Wheatley to get past this industrial door, and it was impossible to get Wheatley until he jumped off of his rail, so this was probably the fastest route. Throughout the next few years, speedrunners would improve Wheatley's skip with small optimizations, like not needing to fling through a portal to get on top of the level, and learning that Wheatley lands at the same spot on the floor in every run, so he can line up the shot early while waiting for Wheatley to roll into our pre-placed portal. It was nice to skip some of the chamber with the Wheatley skip, but saving any more time did not seem feasible. We would have to find some way past this industrial door, and this thing seemed impenetrable. So Secret Panel became a cutscene level with a small skip, and it seemed that it would stay that way.
I've tried before, don't. What the fuck?
Until August 25th, 2016. By pure accident, speedrunner Pyroculus managed to shoot a portal on the ceiling, clipping through the door with the portal visible on both sides of it. This opened huge potential for an even greater Secret Panel skip, potentially skipping Wheatley's cutscene in its entirety, and saving upwards of half a minute. If you could travel through this portal, you could land on the other side of the door. But traveling through this portal seemed to be the tough part. The angle for this portal shot is incredibly tight, that you had to practically be right against the door in order to land it. From this spot, it was impossible to get back to the orange portal, so you couldn't actually travel through it. If it was possible to shoot this portal from anywhere in the starting portion of the chamber, the skip might be possible, but it just isn't. Speedrunners tried to come up with some absurd theories, like this one where you fling through a wall portal, shoot the precise portal in air at the perfect angle, and somehow travel through it. This is not even close to being possible, but speedrunners really wanted to make this strat work, so countless hours were spent trying to make this angled portal shot a reality, yet every theory failed miserably. It really shows just how desperate speedrunners were to find a skip for this chamber. Even with the Wheatley skip, we still had to sit in a cutscene for almost 45 seconds, and for speedrunners, that was 45 seconds of pure pain. So when this portal shot was discovered, hope for a new strat was at an all-time high. But when the dust settled, it really seemed like it was impossible to bypass this door. Most speedrunners just gave up at this point, and accepted that the Wheatley skip was the best we'd get out of Secret Panel. It wasn't for another 3 years that Secret Panel was even talked about. In May of 2019, router extraordinaire Kurzihau was aimlessly investigating the Portal 2 game files, and happened to pull up the industrial door model on the game's model viewer. And after noticing something weird on the model, he zoomed in. And, oh my god, there's a hole in the door. No tricks, no glitches, there's literally just a hole in the door, and you can shoot right through it. It is absurdly precise. Just for reference, this is the size of the door. This is the percentage of viewers who watch me that subscribe, and this is the size of the gap. It's roughly less than 0.01% of the total height of the door. The hole is only in the model's collision, so it's not visible to the naked eye, meaning you have to use exact position and angle coordinates to reliably find the gap. But with some practice, it could be done fairly quickly. So just to reiterate, this 45-second skip that has been sought after for almost 8 years was discovered completely randomly because there's a minuscule gap in a door for no logical reason whatsoever. Needless to say, this shocked the entire Portal 2 speedrunning community. This strat was initially called Wheatley Skip Skip, because it skips Wheatley Skip, but it was later called Pancake Shot, because the shot through the door is said to be flatter than a pancake, and also because Portal 2 speedrunners really love naming tricks after food. Unfortunately though, Wheatley Skip Skip could not be used in full game speedruns, because unlike Wheatley Skip Skip actually skips Wheatley, and you need Wheatley to activate a cutscene in the next level, so it was impossible to... Oh, never mind. Wheatley just spawns in when you load the next level, so you can use the skip in a full Portal 2 speedrun. Can't Even would use this 45-second time save to crush the Portal 2 speedrun world record, achieving a new best time of 1:00:32, and as a result of the Pancake Shot, a sub-hour Portal 2 speedrun was starting to look possible. But with the finding of the Wheatley Skip Skip, there was an unintended side effect that could save more time, and it came in the most unassuming part of the chamber, that being the ending transition room. It starts by closing the industrial door behind you, then fading the screen to black, and then finally transitioning to the next level. This all looks pretty standard, but there's one key difference. Normally, you're carrying Wheatley, but as a result of the Pancake Shot, you're no longer holding anything, so you're able to use the portal gun, which allows you to shoot a portal and leave the ending room during the fade out. If you do this, you'll get a glitch similar to that of a wrong warp. You'll spawn into the next map in an unintended position, outside of normal playable space. This isn't technically considered out of bounds because the next level, Wake Up, has a massive box surrounding it, but you are outside the actual level, meaning you're soft-locked and can't do anything. But what if you could use this wrong warp to save time? Wake Up starts with 2 slow doors opening, so landing anywhere past these doors would save a sizable amount of time. Though after some initial testing, this seemed like a long shot. Changing your position anywhere in the starting room wrong warps you inside of a wall or far away from the actual level. If you wanted to warp into the normal area of Wake Up, you needed to be out of bounds in Secret Panel, and this was an unreasonable place to get to, not to mention against the main category rules. Fortunately though, your velocity does get stored between loading screens, So if we carried some upward speed into the transition, we could fling into the playable area of Wake Up. However, the level fade out is quite quick, as after entering the ending room, we only have around 3 seconds to build up speed, and it just seemed too unreasonable to set up some crazy fling in that little time. But it's okay that the wrong warp skip doesn't really work out. Secret Panel's cutscene was finally skipped, and that was enough for speedrunners. Well, the human ones, at least. In the years that followed, Portal 2 speedrunners were able to develop proper task tools, so a lot of the routes and theories that were previously deemed too hard could be investigated further. And on November 22nd of 2021, router Zymartin found this. This absurd fling gets you into the wake-up chamber, saving just about 10 seconds. It takes a reportal, a strafe back into the orange portal, a floor portal, and another quick reportal, which if it's all done perfectly, you shoot out of your orange portal with enough speed that when you load into Wake Up, you can fling into the main part of the level. The community titled this trick Toast Skip, because after the loading screen, you pop out of the air like a piece of toast in a toaster. And also because 2 years later, Portal 2 speedrunners still love naming tricks after food. This trick is very hard, but at first glance, it doesn't look completely undoable for a human. There are a lot of commonplace routes speedrunners perform that look equally flashy to the toast skip, but there are just an abundance of small inconveniences that make this strat uniquely difficult. Your first jump and reportal won't get the right height if you jump too late. The angled surface we fling out of doesn't have a portable surface immediately below it, so you have to build up horizontal speed by strafing, and landing back in your orange portal with speed is much more precise than it seems. Also, because you're traveling between portals that are both on angled surfaces, it's really hard to have complete control over your camera, because the game will try to automatically correct for the rotations. Then, you're traveling so fast that you barely have time to flick to the wall and land the last reportal. If you manage to do all of that, you need to recollect yourself after the loading screen, and continue air strafing to ensure you clear the invisible walls. It is possible to do all of this and fail the trick in the next level, because these invisible walls are so unbelievably large. We might have found our needle in a haystack, but this needle seemed much too sharp. The skip was quickly deemed task only, but one human had some doubts about that. Waterless Melon, aka Mel, saw this strat and fell in love. He thought it was one of the coolest strats he'd ever seen, and he wanted to be the first person to hit Toast Skip. Most runners would try the trick for a little bit, fail to get back into the orange portal a handful of times, and give up. But Mel played the chamber for hours, mastering every little detail that makes the skip challenging. For instance, getting through this orange portal was so hard because an invisible wall protrudes into the ceiling here, so if your blue portal is placed poorly, you'll end up getting blocked through the portal. Mel was able to get a couple of attempts that nailed the sequence in Secret Panel, but couldn't quite carry enough momentum into Wake Up to clear the invisible barriers. Between 2 days, Mel put in almost 8 hours to try and get this skip, and on November 27th, it all paid off. Mel did the impossible, performing a clean toast skip that would save 10 seconds in a Portal 2 speedrun. Within 5 days, a strat that was deemed task only was performed by a human. But Mel claimed the strat was probably the hardest thing he's ever attempted in Portal 2, so although it was possible, it was far from being full game speedrun ready. But Mel did note that many elements of the trick got easier with practice, and also found out that rotating your blue floor portal 90 degrees here actually helped a lot to conserve your momentum into Wake Up. But you still needed near-perfect air strafes and perfect reportals, so it was safe to say that it's probably the hardest human-viable speedrun route in the game. Mel was able to hit the route a couple more times in practice, but that was it. Mel was the only human to hit Toast Skip. After this, the trick was sort of forgotten. It was accepted that the strat was probably one of the hardest in the game. No one dared attempt it, but it was always thrown into conversation when an unbeatable time or perfect speedrun was mentioned. Toast skip sort of elevated into mythical status. It existed, and it was technically possible, but it was so far away. Maybe in 2030 it will be part of the speedrun, but anytime someone legitimately considered incorporating the trick, they would be reminded that it's just too hard. You see, a lot of Portal 2's hardest strats are usually developed in challenge mode, where runners have no problem attempting difficult strats in short individual level speedruns. On the other hand, full game speedruns value consistency, and will usually opt for slower routes in order to minimize mistakes. Since Toast Skip was a trick that involved transitioning between two levels, it couldn't be done in an individual level speedrun, so challenge mode runners had no interest in the skip. And because the trick was incredibly inconsistent, full game runners also had no interest in learning it. So it would take a truly special runner to bring Toast Skip to life. In 2023, Burger40 was in a league of his own when it came to the Portal 2 speedrun, having a mid-56 time, while other runners could barely get a 56 in the first place. But Burger40 wanted more, specifically a sub-56 minute time, which seemed impossible, but Burger40 was determined to make it happen. In order to make his dream a reality, Burger needed all the time save he could get, so he started to implement some challenge mode strats into his speedruns. Slowly but surely, he was conquering tricks that at one point were deemed too hard for a full game speedrun. At one point in March, some other runners started talking about Toast Skip, sharing their failed attempts. Burger40 saw this and decided to attempt the legendary skip himself. Within the next day, Burger was able to hit Toast Skip, becoming the second human to do so. Maybe this trick wasn't as hard as we thought. Throughout 2023, Burger40 gradually practiced Toast Skip, and day by day, the skip actually seemed more and more feasible. Not to mention, the skip saved 10 seconds, but only took a couple seconds to attempt, so getting it second or third try would still save time. Also, because Secret Panel is only the 7th level in the game, it was so early on in the speedrun that it wouldn't be that big of a deal to reset a run that fails Toast Skip. Burger had some doubts himself about whether or not the trick was worth it, but after seeing other runners getting comfortable with the strat, he was ready to pull the trigger. After putting a plethora of hours into practicing Toast Skip, he was ready to attempt it in full game Portal 2 speedruns. In his eyes, the 10-second time save greatly outweighed the difficulty of the skip, especially if it made his goal of sub-56 possible. On December 2nd, he would get a run that saved time with Toast Skip, setting a new best Chapter 1 time. While he didn't get a new PB with this run, the community was now convinced Toast Skip was real. It took constant attempts through the month of December, with constant failure in the first chapter, until finally, on December 27th, Burger40 got a run with Toast Skip, and managed to convert it into a new world record, getting a time of 56:19. Since then, other top runners have added Toast Skip into their runs. It's probably the hardest skip in the Portal 2 speedrun, but with lots of practice, speedrunners are finding it consistent enough that this once impossible trick is now just another one of the many strats performed by speedrunners every day. So be careful next time you write a level off as a cutscene, because once speedrunners get their hands on it, you might be surprised just what hides underneath it. Thanks for watching.